in front of the speakers and the screen. Hallelujah. Jimmy on the microphone, just like the Lord intended. This is Jimmy Lakey. Hey. Unleashed, unfiltered, unfiltered. There's the things you're afraid to say. This is the day the Lord has made from the house of Lakey. And the Lakey Entertainment Towers be proclaimed. Streamcast, podcast, broadcast, information, entertainment in Jesus' name. Oh yeah. From the house of Lakey to the ends of the earth, you are tuned in to Jimmy Lakey. Unless, oh, this is Jimmy Lakey. Yeah.
All right.
Afraid says the things you're afraid to say. This is the day the Lord has made from the house of Lakey.
All right, here I am. All right, do it again.
Information and infotainment in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, there we have it, the Jimmy Lakey Mass Choir, led by Brother Leroy and Sister Gloria. They're in the female vocals. Good to have all of you here. We took the day off yesterday, President's Day. Wanted to celebrate our favorite presidents. I don't know who you celebrated yesterday, but I celebrated all of them. Happy President's Day to all of you. Hope you had a good Valentine's as well. That would be an exciting day that a lot of you had on Saturday. I don't want to hear any of the details of who got lucky and not, because Jeff was saying his fingers were crossed, so I don't want to know any about that. Anyway, good to have all of you here on the program. Happy Valentine's Day past, happy President's Day past, and now we head towards spring break season, and Delilah's preparing for that. I'm trying to get my beach bod ready for my spring break party, so everybody just prepare your hearts for that. I don't want to talk about it too much because you would stumble in your walk with the Lord, but listen, by spring break, I'm going to be a spiffy specimen of goodness, even more so than usual, so prepare your hearts for that, and spring break is coming up, and remember as a kid, you got spring break, and now that my son's off to college, he gets spring break. But I used to get spring break too when he was still in the middle school, high school, elementary school. His spring break, I took some time off and did spring breaky things. But now Lakey doesn't do spring breaky things because, he'll be home for a couple of days. He goes to a couple of other events during this spring break. Anyway, good to have all of you here. Anybody notice the government shutdown, the Friday night, the partial government shutdown? I'm guessing if you're a TSA worker, you're probably knowing it, or you will notice it when you don't get your next paycheck, thanks to Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. Another one, I guess the Coast Guard right now, if you're a Coast Guarder, you're going to notice it here real soon. The government has been partially shut down because the Democrats don't like the Department of Homeland Security. Your Homeland Security is not priority for the Democrats out there. Now, they're idiots because ICE has already been funded in the big, beautiful bill. And so there's not a lot that they're going to be able to accomplish here, but they're wanting to abolish ICE is the ultimate goal. And I'm going to predict to you that even though there may be some people out there that have differing opinions about ICE and they're squawking about ICE and making a big deal about ICE, I'm telling you, remember when the abolish the police or defund the police movement happened, and you're like, oh, I don't want to say I want to fund the police because the squeaky wheel radical left was so loud that you're afraid to slash your tires or slash your throat if you were pro-police. And then ultimately the pro-police message prevailed, and Democrats had to walk back and say, well, I didn't really mean defund the police. I predict you're going to have the same thing with this ICE abolish thing. It's going to be stupid messaging that Democrats can't figure out, that they may get a short-term spike in fundraising, and they may get their radical base all lit up in a tizzy about it and all aroused emotionally about it. But I'm telling you, long-term, I don't think it's going to be a message that sticks for the Democrats. So keep on going, Democrats, because this is it's not a good look for you to go for this. It's kind of like they're making a big deal about the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act is this bill that would just simply really require voter ID. It is an 80% issue. 80% of all Americans, it's hard to get 80% of a house or a room to agree on anything, but 80% of Americans believe that you should have voter ID. And so the Democrats, because it's a Republican thing and the Trump thing, they say, oh, we can't have that. And again, this is one that will backfire. Democrats, you're stupid in your messaging if you can't come together on 80-20 issues or 90-10 issues, some polls say, then you're not going to be able to. Eventually, you may get a spike because the media covers for you, but after a while, your messaging falls short, and you saw that in the last election. And that's one of the reasons you got your heinies whipped by President Donald John Trump as he returned to the White House for a second term, because your messaging finally came home to roost. Your messaging of women should be able to play in men should be able to play in women's sports, and that there are more than two genders. Again, you get a lot of squawking, you get a lot of radicals and the blue hairs and the weirdos. They all cheer you on and say that's so great and so tolerant, but eventually it catches up with the people that are working for a living, that aren't paying attention to this full time, and they say Democrats said what? There's more than two genders. Men should play in women's sports, but men should be able to change and go into women's bathrooms in the public square. Really? What kind of nonsense is this? And so eventually the messaging of the Democrats catches up, and it bites them on the hind end. Anybody see this story? It's not on my notes here, but I saw this earlier and I meant to put it on my notes, that Chuck Schumer, Senate Minority Leader, old Chucky Chuck from New York, Chuck Schumer, while there's a government shutdown in its fourth day, entering this partial shutdown of the fourth day, and the TSA is wondering if they're going to get paid. A lot of folks in the Homeland Security Department are going to suffer because the Democrats' radical message of we hate ICE and we love illegals and we love pedophiles. That's what the Democrats are saying when they say they don't want these surges to come, and none of these surges would have to happen if Democrats had not declared sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. That's why they're happening. That traditionally, when you have a criminal in your jail, you find out which other agency may want that criminal. You call that agency, and that agency will transport them hither or yon and take them off your hands. I was just the other day driving through, I forgot, it was in, I want to say maybe Longmont, Colorado, or somewhere in that area, in the northern Colorado area. And I saw a police car, and I looked at it. Oh, there's a Popo. They're here. And it was, I think it was a Telluride, a police car. And I'm guessing they were either picking up or transporting someone back to where they had a warrant there. That's what happens. Well, these sanctuary cities were not allowing ICE to do that. Therefore, you have the searches. And again, the messaging finally catches up with people. And when it does, it's usually not good for the Democrats. So the partial government shutdown, to go back to Chuck Schumer, I have this story. Do you hear what bill he's floating right now? This is the news this morning that Chuck Schumer has floated a bill when he should be trying to figure out how to get the government back open. And by the way, the Republicans and the Democrats all headed home from the Senate. They're not even in session this week, and that's something that should be rebuked by both parties, that these jackwagon politicians are not in session right now in Washington when there's a partial government shutdown that some government employees are suffering right now. So that they should all be ashamed of themselves. Every one of them should be ashamed. Republicans and Democrats should be just ashamed to show their face in their home states for being out of session right now. Get your asses back to Washington, D.C. and get your job done. We don't need you here spreading the manure that you usually spread in your district. Get back to work and go to Washington and do what we sent you there to do before you come home and pretend that you actually did it. Chuck Schumer, in this time when they should be working on a government shutdown ending, guess what old Chucky's doing? Chuck has proposed a bill that would give the LGBTQ flag, the rainbow flag, basically full protective status with all other American flags and the variations thereof. That's what Chuck Schumer's making news for right now, because evidently there's a place in New York State that is considered the birthplace of the LGBTQ movement, the modern movement. And it was an inn or a hotel. They have a flag up that has the rainbow on it, but it's in a national monument area of the United States government. And under Trump, the United States government has said we fly American flags, military flags. That's it. We're not going to fly this cause or that cause celeb. We're not going to fly blue flags, purple flags, red flags, green flags for some cause. No, we fly the American flag, the stars and stripes, variations thereof, and our military flags. And that's all that's going to be on government property. So Chuck Schumer doesn't like that. He wants the rainbow flag in New York. And maybe he wants the rainbow flag at this place. It is a landmark, but it's a landmark. It's on government property. The rules forbid that from happening. And so Chuck Schumer has gone to the floor of the Senate and into the committees, and he's proposing a bill in which the LGBTQ rainbow flag would have protective status and cannot be removed from federal property. It has to be up there, giving you basically the protection of the stars and stripes. This is how out of touch the Democrats are. I'm guessing there's not a lot of folks around America probably outside of maybe Manhattan, parts of New York City. Not a lot of folks in New York going, boy, I really hope my senator runs a bill to protect the LGBTQ flag. I really hope that's his priority. I'm guessing the people of the TSA right now, or the people of the Coast Guard, are not sitting around saying, boy, I sure hope that Chuck Schumer I sure hope that Chuck Schumer does. I sure hope that Chuck Schumer runs a bill on the American flag. So everybody stand by, my friends. We got a lot of stuff to get to. Laura Carno's coming up on Carno Tuesday. Our old buddy Dennis Neal, formerly of Fox Business and CNBC, he'll be on the program here. We'll talk about the partial government shutdown continued. This hockey rink shooter was interesting. That happened in Monday in Rhode Island, and I'll get to the full story. But please, this is. Evidently, it's a father of four, has been fighting with his family about becoming transgender, and then went to hockey. And hockey, there's the transgender suspect right there. It's a really sad story, but it goes back to this long list of stories in which we're finding more and more, for whatever reason. It should be researched what's happening with these school shooters, etc. That we're finding more and more people are identifying as trans. Just an observation. Don't know the science behind it, but I'm telling you, it should be definitely looked into. All right, glad to have you here again. Big time lineup here. Welcome back. Glad you're all tuning back in. Thousands of earballs will hear this show by the end of the day. And on the podcast, the streamcast, the broadcast, all the platforms we're on. Glad to have you back on here. And thanks for letting us have time off yesterday for the, what do we call it? The President's Day weekend. By the way, reading some history, did you know that George Washington did not like celebrating his birthday? And Abraham Lincoln were not real fond of celebrating his birthday either. I've got the news story, the history lesson for you later on. And we take an entire day off and celebrate it as a nation, the birth of those great leaders and other presidents of the United States. All right, let me welcome in a guest here. He's written a book called Empire of Lies, Fragments from the Memory Hole. His name is Charles Gov't, and he joins us in the green room. A little background here on Charles. You might have seen him on national television, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, Fox Business, PBS. He's joined with former presidential candidate Ron Paul for nationally syndicated commentary, Ron Paul's America, that aired daily on 125 radio stations. He's a New York Times bestselling author, award-winning talk show host. Charles Gov't is in the green room, although he just disconnected. So maybe he left us. I don't know. I had Charles on for tomorrow, but if he wants to come on today, he can. Charles Gov't, they're the shame. Anyway, but if Charles shows back up, I'll get to him. He's disconnected right now. Device is not connected. It shows on my screen. He showed up. I have him for tomorrow, but I can do the 8:15 slot today. I told Kimberly that. So let Kimberly know, Delilah, that we're good. Not exactly sure. All right. Good to have you all here on the program. Let's go back to this transgender thing because I find it quite interesting and quite fascinating. No, it says connected, but it says device not connected. Yeah, the mic and the camera not turned on. Okay, so Charles may be having technical difficulties, so we'll figure that out. Maybe have to put that into tomorrow. This hockey rink shooter thing is quite fascinating. Oh, maybe he's been connected now. Let me stall here. Let me talk about Sherry Cree while we talk here. Sherry Cree, her website is homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. And listen, you go to that website, you're going to learn about Sherry, read about Sherry, and contact Sherry. It is a time of the year, my friends, in which a lot of folks start thinking about relocation, downsize, upside. I know you're just kind of figure out your real estate dreams. Listen, there's specific windows of which if you sell your home at the right time, you can get a heck of a lot more than maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks, a month later. Listen, there's windows of selling. There's opportunities. There's times when Sherry can tell you on the calendar it's about to switch to a buyer's market. It's going to switch to a seller's market. Make sure you're on the correct way, right? The correct side of that equation. She knows and she realizes, she wants to walk you through this, that real estate can be something in your life that can create generational wealth, but you got to have the right person on your team. It's not just about the person that you met at Sunday school or the church or at the barbershop that had a business card and said, I'm a realtor. Listen, 70% of all realtors in America did 0 transactions last year. You don't want to mess with them. They may have pretty signs and pretty cards, but you want somebody that's selling and active and doing things and getting results, and Sherry is one of those people. I-25 corridor in Colorado, from Denver to Fort Collins, down to South Denver, Park Meadows, Aurora. If you're in Boulder, Broomfield, you get the idea. Parker, if you're in Aurora, she can make sure you don't live next to Tren de Aragua. Listen, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, and be sure to let her know that Jaime Lagos, that's me, Jimmy Lakey, told you to be in touch. Homeswithsherry.com, generational wealth, real estate. She's the one to call, homeswithsherry.com. All right, a little connection with difficulty we had, but Charles Goyette is now on the stage. Charles, I already gave your introduction. Thanks. Welcome to the show, sir.
Yes, Jimmy, thank you so much for having me. And I watched you pivot my non-presence there like a veteran second baseman. It was a great play, great way to, hey, a veteran at this stuff. Thank you so much.
It was a pirouette, and I'm glad I didn't stand up because I do have tights on, and I didn't want people to stumble in the walk with the Lord. And be bad.
I get that. Tutu.
Charles, let's dive into this. New York Times best-selling author. You've written a new book called Empires of Lies, Fragments from the Memory Hole. Let's dive into this. I love the subtitle at the bottom, The Shameful Story of the Deep State Warlords, Lies and Failed Foreign Interventions. Charles, talk about the book, sir.
Yeah, and here we go again, perhaps. So Fragments from the Memory Hole refers to what we all had to read probably in high school, 1984 by George Orwell. And people will remember that the ministry, for example, the Ministry of Love is where they sent you to be tortured. And the Ministry of Truth is where they rewrote history. So when they change alliances or somebody gets a Washington makeover and suddenly they're sanitized and they weren't bad, but they were bad last year when we were spending millions to kill them. Those Washington makeovers would have happened in a Ministry of Truth where they rewrote history, and the old versions of history would get dropped into an incinerator they called the memory hole. So I'm trying to give people some sort of a sense of the trajectory of where this country is going if we don't begin to value the truth. And the truth has been so neglected in this country that I think, Jimmy, sometimes I think the American people are like Stockholm syndrome. You know, when I was a kid, everybody believed the government. The government said Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone gunman, yada, yada. Everybody believed everything the government said. Weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, of course, weapons of mass destruction. Now things are a little bit different, and everybody kind of rolls their eyes when the government asserts something, makes a claim or something. Everybody kind of goes, well, we're being lied to, but they don't do anything about it. And the result of that will be a calamity, I think. So that's the point of the book, to awaken people to what the government has done, the empire of lies, and where we're headed.
Let's dive into the empire of lies. The phrase deep state was one I was not familiar with, or the swamp, until Donald Trump in his first term. I was like, that's a great phrase. And I'm sure he didn't coin it, but it was the first time it became elevated in my lexicon as just a way to describe Washington, D.C. But it's been going on in Washington. The deep state's been happening for a long time. And again, it's kind of waking people up to what the lies have been told. What would you say the greatest lies we have been told in maybe our generation that the government maybe continues to perpetrate? You mentioned Lee Harvey Oswald, but there's been a lot of wars that we fought based on, let's say, prevarications and fibs.
Yeah, and there are so many in the book, one hardly knows where to begin. But I think a good way to begin maybe is with the Iraq War, you know, the weapons of mass destruction that weren't there. And I've got one anecdote that I like to share just because, you know, everybody goes, oh my God, how'd they get away with that? But there was an incident during that period in which we were told that we would see the smoking gun in the form of a mushroom cloud if we didn't go to war. That was created by a marketing group within the White House. They were looking for a reason to get people on board, and they finally came up with the smoking gun mushroom cloud story. But one of the things they came up with as evidence was these aluminum tubes that supposedly Iraq had, these aluminum tubes, and they were part of the centrifuge process. And Iraq was going to, refine uranium with these centrifuges, and it was going to be all over smoking gun mushroom cloud. And the guys at our own Department of Energy that were involved in atomic processing and uranium refining and so on said, no, those tubes don't work. Those tubes aren't part of the uranium process. They can't work. They're non-functional. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. That's not what they are. So the story got packaged up in the vice president's office, in Dick Cheney's office, by Dick Cheney and Scooter Libby, regardless of what their own Department of Energy was saying and regardless of any evidence to the contrary. They packaged it up. They wrote it up. They put it in a neat little package. And then they gave it to the New York Times. And the New York Times, Judith Miller, got it slapped on the front page. On the front page, oh, aluminum tubes, mushroom cloud. This is Saddam's determined to blow us all up, and he's within 5 minutes of getting weapons of mass destruction. Okay, so that's bad enough. But then what happened next is an act of beauty in deep state history. So Vice President Cheney shows up on Meet the State, a show where by their own admission, they liked it because they could always control the message. He shows up on Meet the State on Sunday morning after this story plays in the New York Times. And he says, oh, Saddam Hussein, aluminum tubes, uranium, centrifuges, mushroom clouds. And then he says, Jimmy, he says, but don't take it from me. Here it is on the front page of the New York Times this morning. So they place the story. Yeah, it goes to a lapdog, back to the deep state, from the deep state to the lapdog, back to the lapdog, back to the deep state, and so on and so forth. So that's just one in a million kinds of cases. Just one more to share with you quickly. You know that in Syria, the American people didn't know why we were getting rid of Assad. He supported us in the war and in Iraq and so on. They didn't really understand why we were getting rid of him, but they were told we had to get rid of him. You had in the Syrian war, you had jihadists that were armed by the CIA fighting with Islamic fundamentalists that were armed by the Pentagon. So we were paying for both sides of it. I guess that's a good deal if you manufacture weapons of mass destruction. You pay you're providing both sides. You're making a lot of money on the deal. But anyway, at the end of the day, Assad had to go. Assad went, and who did we install? We installed a guy had been known as al-Jilani. He'd been kind of an Al-Qaeda, ISIS affiliate. He was imprisoned in Iraq. The United States State Department, Jimmy, had a $10 million bounty on his head for his brutality, murder, and terrorism until last year. And suddenly, another Washington makeover. They gave him a $90,000 Swiss watch, trimmed his beard a little bit, put him in an Armani suit, and now he is the president of Syria, installed by us and by the Mossad. It's absolutely crazy. And the American people that sent their fathers and wives and husbands and sons and so on off to Iraq to fight these wars of regime change and stuff. We're not told that at the end of the day, when it's all over, we're going to take one of these terrorists and give him his own country. But that's what we've done in the Empire of Lies.
If you're listening to the podcast version of later the show, thousands of earballs hear the show throughout the day for a podcast, broadcast, and streamcast. It's New York Times best-selling author Charles Gov't. The name of his book is called Empire of Lies. I know you do a lot with the foreign interventions and foreign wars, but I remember Eisenhower warning us about the military-industrial complex. You read the speech. We have another Empire of Lies, and I'm not sure how much you touch in the book, but it's very similar lies we're told. It's the pharmaceutical-industrial complex. The lies we get told by that. I go back to old Dr. Fauci. I call him the little effer. I mean, there's a lot of lies that we've all been susceptible to right in front of our face.
There is a great economic theory, and it's not really a theory, but it's called regulatory capture. And basically it says, that the government creates an agency to regulate the pharmaceutical industry. And of course, predictably, it gets captured by the pharmaceutical industry, and they get their guys in place and they make the rules, they write the rules changes, things that go in the Federal Register are written by them. So they've taken control of, the agencies. This happens all the time in all the agencies. And it's happened I think it's happened in, our national defense policy, the American military empire, the weapons manufacturers that are in charge. They fund the think tanks. The think tanks write the intellectual pieces and the editorials for the newspaper about why we've got to do this regime change war and that one. But don't worry, everything will be different after that's over, and we can reclaim our American prosperity. And yeah, we're going to bomb some roads and some buildings and some schools, but then we'll rebuild them with your money when it's all over. But this is the last one. This is the war to end all wars. Yada, yada, and yada. It's the same story every time. And every time they say, but on the other side of this intervention, we're going to make the Middle East is going to be a lot better.
It's going to be peaceful. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men. It's coming. Just let us drop a few more bombs. Charles Gov't, I got a question. Anytime we talk about this, and I wholeheartedly, I'm fascinated. I can't wait to get into the book. I have a little bit more than I've been able to skim through it. But I'm just fascinated when you start talking. Some people are going, okay, guys, is there a bunker in Washington, D.C. where all these ideas are happening? Did they put Dick Cheney on ice? Who's the puppet master of all this stuff? It's happened for generations. Where do these crazy ideas come from?
Well, I call it the deep state, and I've identified the deep state for people so they get a handle on it as the executive arm of the Empire of Lies. It's the executive arm of the global American military empire. And we think of guys like Clapper and Brennan that have lied to the American people. We think of, these guys at the top, Alan Dulles, that lied to the American people about Cuba and helped whitewash the CIA and the Kennedy assassination. We think of these guys at the top, but there are untold petty minor bureaucrats all the way through the government that are involved in these things. How about this one? Guy was a member of the National Security Council, a lieutenant colonel named Vindman, and he's the one that kind of tried to forward the first impeachment effort against President Trump. What was his complaint against President Trump? He said in Congress, he testified, well, President Trump was not following the direction or the consensus of the interagencies. What, Jimmy, I ask you, is an interagency? Where is that in the Constitution? Where are its rules? How is it conducted? Who votes in it? Who gets a say? Where do we see the record? But this is another term for it. The interagency is the same self-perpetuating bureaucracy, people trying to get ahead. It used to be called the invisible government. It was called the shadow government. I like the deep state as a term, cover term for it, because it's a little more ominous and gives you an idea that it's hidden not just in the top guys in government, but it works all the way down through the bureaucracy of people trying to get ahead and curry favor.
The name of the book is Empire of Lies, the shameful story of the deep state's warlords, war lies, and failed foreign interventions. New York Times bestselling author Charles Gov't. Charles, I'm sure the book is available anywhere great books are sold. If they don't sell great books, they don't sell your books.
Well, I would say that, but it's available on Amazon first. That's where I said people is to Amazon. So it's a good read. It's great reviews, and most especially, it helps open our eyes, because if we don't start valuing the truth, if we don't start demanding the truth, our trajectory, I believe, is very grim, Jimmy.
There's your website right across the bottom of the screen. Sir, I'm glad you got your technical difficulty worked out, and I appreciate you hopping on. CharlesGoyette.com, and again, the name of the book is Empire of Lies. Thank you, sir. Maybe we'll have another good conversation. That's always fascinating stuff. I'm telling you, get a copy of these books. They're so educational because you hear about the deep state, and he backs it up. He brings the receipts, if you will, and he gives you examples of things that maybe you thought you're right in front of you, and you're like, oh, wow, that was smoke and mirrors, wasn't it? He used the weapons of mass destruction, is one many of us remember, and we don't. There's so many of them, and he details them in the book. It's called The Empire of Lies, and fragments from the memory hole, in reference to George Orwell's 1984. Ladies and gentlemen, before we bring on our next guest, it's Carno Tuesday here on the program, and you know what Carno Tuesday means? It means that Laura Carno is in the green room and she's ready to jump onto the screen. But before she does, ladies and gentlemen, we must welcome into the program Brother Leroy and his introduction. So please, I step aside and count down to Laura Carno. Please.
From DC trenches to that Colorado dome of dummies, she defends your right to keep and bear, and she does not miss. Smartest woman in Colorado, keeps kids safe in school with fastercolorado.org. Sure, she's a cat lady, grows mean tomatoes, but don't mess with her. She's back in here.
There she is. I have a Laura sighting. Maybe an animation or something here. That's something awkward.
She's locked and loaded.
Ladies and gentlemen, Laura Carno. We gotta get something there. Yeah. Would you tell me when you're done? Okay, you don't just keep going. We already said her name enough. We don't want it to go to her head. We don't want braggadocio and come on. Brother Leroy scared me to death there. We got to get something there. That's kind of a awkward time of you and I sitting there like two crackers dancing. This is kind of weird.
Yeah, I have zero rhythm, for the record.
I was going to talk about that. I was going to say that.
I might be able to do like that Donald Trump also no rhythm thing, but yeah,
the cracker twirl, what we call that. Laura Carno and producer Chad have been scheming against me. I'm sitting with producer Chad yesterday, and he says, they put it all on me. Why haven't we gone to see the Melania movies? Lakey going to do this, or he's just yanking my chain? I'm like, why am I getting you're the two chatting here? What's happening here? How do I get thrown under the bus?
First of all, good morning, Arloa. She just said hello. So it's not that you got thrown under the bus. It's that I want to see the movie, and I would love it if we had an event to hang out with the likes of you all. And if not, I'm going to go see the movie. So I was just checking with producer Chad to see if it was a thing or not.
It is always a thing, but I didn't know I was the plan. It was an event planner. Okay, I'll look at it, find the place.
No,
today.
you're not. Note, I took you out of the text thread and just connected Chad with our, am I allowed to say his name, or is he a potential secret guest?
No, Christian Toto.
Christian Toto from hollywoodandtoto.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Well, the key is you live like in Egypt, almost like in Oklahoma and Kansas, and we're here, and I don't know where we'll have to meet somewhere like in Lubbock, Texas or something.
Now, here's the thing, Jimmy, is because I moved out to the sticks, part of the calculus is I know that I'm far from everything, so I know I will always drive. So it's make it convenient for you and your listeners, and I will be there.
All right, we got to do it quick. This thing's going to get out of the theaters here soon.
I know.
Maybe like this week or something. So, all right,
that's the text.
On it today. Today. Yeah, I just do what I'm told. That's all I do, Laura. I told you in the text last night. I am the puppet, and Chad's the puppet master.
You're just the talent. Is that what you're saying? You're just the talent.
Yeah, when I say he's the puppet master and I'm the puppet, it just gives an implication of a hand in a bad place, though, and I don't like that at all. I snuck that one in. Snuck it right.
Dude, you never speak like that to your authors and your academics and all those. You save all that stuff for me. Thanks, Jimmy.
Well, I'm the one that said that. As I said it, I said, that sounds disgusting. He's the puppet master. I shocked myself. I was as shocked as you were, Laura. I was as shocked as you were.
Sure.
I was. All right, Laura Carno, let's dive into this thing. First of all, I'm glad you're doing well. We'll get all this stuff straightened out. I checked the AMC sites and I don't see it anywhere, but we'll look again today, see if we can get this all nailed down. Laura Carno, fastercolorado.org, fastercolorado.org. Laura, let's talk about Gavin Newsom presidential race. I have it on my sheet that AOC over the weekend made a fool of herself in Munich. Gavin Newsom is also getting all twisted up, and the more you ask Gavin some questions about his policies, the more you realize he's an empty suit with greasy hair.
Yeah. So what's so interesting about him, and he's widely discussed as a lead Democrat candidate for president. And if you step back as a political analyst or somebody who is advising him on his campaign, what is his message? I will do for the country what I have done for California, because what do they say in the investment community? Past performance is indicative of future performance. Okay, so if he had better ideas for California, wouldn't he be doing them in California? But yeah, his latest thing, Jimmy, is this article this morning. I'm like, really? So California has put just draconian regulations on the oil and gas industry, and when you have a big regulatory burden on any kind of an industry, they're going to go somewhere else to do their business. It's too expensive. It's too unpredictable. In the case of the energy industry, it is a years-long process to get permitting and just all of the things. Watch Landman if you want to see some details on that. But you're there for a decade or two. You can't invest in a state that has inconsistent and again this regulatory state that just crushes business. So he's driven oil and gas production out. He's driven refining capacity out of California, and here's what he's doing. California gas prices, if you go to fill up your tank in California, are like almost $5 a gallon.
Yeah.
And so he's got to do something to get some downward pressure on pricing. So here's what he's doing. A fuel that is being partially refined in the Gulf Coast area of the United States, Gulf of America, then gets shipped to the Bahamas, and then it flies under a foreign flag, goes down to the canal, all the way around to California, and dumps the gas or the fuel in California. Why doesn't he just get rid of the regulations? You know why he can't. He is his big donors on the left coast are adamantly opposed to oil and gas, and that's why he has to do it. So, as you said, he's twisting himself up into a pretzel to try and make this thing happen. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, they just shut down another refinery in California this past week, and they're getting very, very desperate. And, the Californians get what they vote for. And again, they're saving the energy, saving the world, but they're still shipping oil. I mean, just the carbon footprint of getting what they're getting there is just shows the hypocrisy of it. And there's no foundational principles guiding them other than stupidity. And Gavin Newsom on full display here. Another story you sent over to me, if you want to talk about Gavin Newsom's incompetence, I have a feeling it's going to be a story because it keeps going on. It's a gift that keeps on giving. Billions of dollars have been spent on a high-speed rail system, and that rail system is still not anywhere near. He put out a video. He's so stupid. He put out a video last week talking about the progress, and yet he didn't say we're still 50 years from it being done, but look how much progress we're making.
Right. And one of the late night shows did this parody video of all of the times he said that this high speed rail is going to be done and it's not. And it, like left wing late night TV. And so my mom and my sister live in the Central Valley of California. And so when I'm out there, I see the quote unquote progress. If you're listening to this and not watching it, that was air quotes around progress. But it's this stretch of high-speed rail infrastructure that cuts off at one end and cuts off at the other end. And it's basically like on my way from my mom and sister's town to Fresno Airport, you can see the beginning and the end, and it goes nowhere because it's not connected to anything. But here's what caught my eye this morning, Jimmy, is there is a bill in the California legislature that said that if it passes, will disallow the people, the department in California that's running this project, it will disallow them from releasing any information that could make the project look bad. That would include fraud. That would include budget overruns. That would include all of that stuff. I'm sorry, if it makes us look bad, we're going to make it illegal to speak about. And you wonder about these liberals in California, and I'm old enough to remember when liberals supported free speech and transparency in government, and that's apparently out the window in California.
Wow. Speaking of sanity fleeing a state, I'm pretty libertarian, but I think we got a few other problems in the state of Colorado. Let me get your take on this. Colorado has moved with a bill in the state legislature. I mean, that prostitution should be made legal. Now, even in Nevada, there's certain counties that it's legal, but it's not legal everywhere. This basically say the hooers and the prostitutes can roam freely about the streets in the state of Colorado. It's literally in the state legislature now that we will become a prostitute-friendly state. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah. And so generally speaking, Jimmy, I lean very libertarian like you, that if you're a consenting adult and you want to, put some sort of substance in your body, or you want to do whatever, it is your body and you have bodily autonomy. But that's not what happens with these legalized prostitution bills. And Michael Allen, and he's running for attorney general against maybe Jenna Griswold if she wins that primary. And Michael's a great guy. He's in the 4th Judicial District down in Colorado Springs, known him for quite a while. So he says Coloradans are leaving this state in record numbers because crime is rising and the cost of living is out of control. Yet Democrats in the legislature are focusing on legalized prostitution. And then he goes on to talk about human trafficking that is going to stem from this. So the libertarian in me says consenting adults, but that's not always what happens with these things. And Colorado ranked 13th in the nation with 88 human trafficking cases last year. And 88 might sound like, well, it's maybe a small number, and we're only 13th in the country. That's 88 people who were being kept in human sexual slavery. I think regardless of the side of the aisle, we can all agree that slavery is wrong, and that should we shouldn't do anything that makes that easier. So, what are we focusing on? I think in my note to you this morning, I said because priorities, right? Like so many things are broken here. So let's make sure that prostitution's legal. Good job, guys.
You can be as libertarian as you want to be. I tend to be libertarian as well in most instances like that. But I'm thinking, this is what you woke up, and this is what it's kind of like the state's falling apart. People are leaving this place. It's become a cesspool in many areas. Not the Colorado I moved to or you moved to. We need to save the state. It's so ill affordable. I've got friends that have kids that are getting in that married and home buying age. I don't think my kid will ever be able to afford a house in this state. It's so unaffordable. And somebody wakes up and says, well, let's not deal with any of that. Let's make prostitution legal across the state. That it's like, what the hell are you thinking? Do you not realize exactly what you need to do? Right. There's other priorities for all of us. Nobody woke up and said, boy, let's get the whores be legal.
Yeah. And Jim just posted, who's watching, that this is another way for them to tax something. And that's a really good point. I mean, there's that sort of social, the social side where, it's make sex work legal. And by the way, there's some books for children that talk about what sex work is. And I think that's great that you need to learn in second grade. But the other part is something more to tax. And when I look at things that can be taxed, my theory is starve the beast. I'm a no to anything else. Jeff's talking about powdered alcohol in the prostitution bill. Funny, Jeff. Something more to tax gives the state government, more money to boss us around and limit our freedom. So if there's anything, I don't even care if I'm in favor of whatever the thing is that they're doing. If it is for taxation, if it drives 1 penny more into the state coffers, I'm a no. Starve the beast.
You could argue, though, that we've had a supermajority of Democrats in this state for many years, and Jared Polis has been our governor now for going on 8 years, 2 terms, and so they've been screwing us all along, and they're getting paid. So I guess legalized prostitution has already occurred down at the Dome of Dummies in the governor's mansion. They're getting paid to screw us every day.
Yeah, not the good kind.
I can't believe you said that. Shocking.
Unleashed.
Well, unleashed, unfiltered you are. Laura Carno, you've got a Faster Colorado is your life's work. People need to donate to the cause, keeping the school kids safe on the school campuses, training people to protect the school campuses. Everybody go make a donation. You have some law enforcement classes coming up. Talk about these classes that Faster Colorado is about to offer and how people can get involved.
Yeah, and this is really big, not just for the work we do at Faster, but for law enforcement, especially rural law enforcement that doesn't get to do the advanced pistol and rifle tactics and then the advanced building tactics. Rural agencies just don't get that opportunity to do it. So if you know anybody in Colorado law enforcement, send them to our website. These are free classes to the agencies. We got a grant from the state of Colorado, the Office of School Safety, to teach law enforcement. So anybody you know who's in law enforcement, it could be your local game warden, Parks and Wildlife, State Patrol. These are often the guys that are, because they're out everywhere throughout the state, that might be the first one to arrive to a school shooting. Parks and Wildlife, by the way, has been on scene of every single mass shooting in Colorado because they're all around there. So whether you know somebody in a sheriff's office, police department, the fish cops, as we like to call them, or State Patrol, send them to the Faster Colorado website. And it's there under our classes, law enforcement classes. Again, they are free to the agency. So if you're a member of the law enforcement community, when you go to your sergeant or your lieutenant and say, hey, I want to take this class, it's no cost to the agency. And it's still all the same active duty law enforcement instructors that we use for our classes. So it's very high quality.
FasterColorado.org. A couple of bucks always welcome. They can continue these trainings, keeping your kids safe in the public schools or any school out there from these school shooters, and any more trans shooters seem to be a big problem. We're going to come back. Got to go to Dennis Neal, but that's the shooter from the hockey rink yesterday. Father of four, but decided something went drastically wrong. We'll talk more about that. Laura Carno, FasterColorado.org, and I'm sure we'll be in touch today about the Melania movie screening with you and the esteemed, famous Christian Toto. We'll figure it all out. I'm
perfect.
Just a puppet in the paw.
Just a puppet. Okay. All right.
Laura Carno, appreciate you. Laura Carno, FasterColorado.org, FasterColorado.org, FasterColorado.org. All right, he's waiting patiently. We're about 4 minutes behind schedule. I apologize. That's just the levity that Laura Carno and I began the segment with, I'm sure, drug us down a little bit. But Dennis Neal is ever forgiving, I hope. He's a best-selling author, acclaimed journalist. He's the author of a forthcoming book called Orgoners, previously anchored at CNBC, Fox Business, and other senior roles at the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. Friend of the program, Dennis Neal, joins us now. Now he's back. He's down in Florida, I believe.
Hello, Jimmy.
Good life. Good morning, sir.
It's great to see you, sir. I just woke up this morning to see 2 turtles out here, as well as the carcass of an iguana down here in South Florida. I used to wake up and get out on the streets of Brooklyn, where I saw carcasses of pigeons run over by trucks or rats. But here, it's iguanas and live turtles and great blue heron and egrets and ibises. It's just incredible here. Florida remains very wild. And I grew up down in South Florida, but I never realized, now that I'm coming back after 4 years in Brooklyn, what a wild place this is. I was at lunch right along the Intercoastal the other day with my sweetie. Boom, I see the big old tail of a manatee flipping, rolling in the water 10 feet away from me. It's just something down here, man. Wow. And it's so different from being in downtown Brooklyn, a mile from the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm in shock still.
I heard a couple of weeks ago it got so cold in Florida that the iguanas were falling out of the trees. Is that it's what they do?
Frozen stiff. And then you make the mistake because there's a company down here that gathers them up and kills them and serves them as food in Latin restaurants, apparently. And there's some story, and I don't know if it's a real story or if it's a Carl Hyacin fiction bit about frozen iguanas in the back of the car, back seat, and suddenly they're waking up and the driver having no idea that they weren't dead. Yeah, that happens here.
Yeah, be careful. That's why I make a policy never to pick up a frozen iguana. It's a policy I have.
I'm fishing, and on the canal, right next to a highway with my brother, I'm fishing, and right across the bank, this otter comes up onto the bank from underwater. It's got a dead or kind of struggling iguana in its hands. It's been drowning it so it can eat it. I mean, this is so wild and weird here.
It's Dennis Neal and his Tales of Florida. You've got a book coming out called Orgoners, Tales of Oregon, the crazy stuff. Dennis, before we get to your book and other topics, it's fascinating to me. There's this bill called the SAVE Act that's made it through the House, and it's pretty basic. It basically says you need to show photo ID. We're going to limit the use of mail-in ballots, and let's just get down to add some integrity to our elections. Not only did 213 Democrats vote against the voter ID proof of citizenship requirements, it's now in the U.S. Senate, and some people don't know if it's going to get through the U.S. Senate, which is controlled by Republicans. Talk about this SAVE Act.
Unbelievable. And such a tragedy of American politics that 213, only one Democrat, a guy in Texas, bless his heart, had the gall to vote in favor of voter ID. Now, I just saw a poll published on CNN. It's 76% of blacks in America in favor of voter ID, though we're told this is the new Jim Crow. It says, I think, 85% of Hispanics in favor of voter ID, though we thought we were supposed to disenfranchise them. Let me also point out that before I left Brooklyn recently, I'm in line at FedEx. There's a half dozen people ahead of me. Every single one a person of color. Every single one had ID. The thought that the lack of ID is going to stop them from voting. You know, if you're a Democrat and you want to fix this problem, instead of voting against this bill, how about coming up with a program to ensure that every person of color that you think is being suppressed has voter ID because you shipped it to them and you funded a program to do that. How about fixing it that way? But they don't want to do that. They want to ensure that illegal immigrants can vote after Biden just let in more than 10 million of them. I was a registered lifelong Democrat, lifelong. And that's what it is. This party wants to cheat. This party wants a communist takeover of this country, and they will do it any way they can. And the other day, when I got my new Florida driver license, and New York no longer counts, they snipped a corner off to make sure I can't ever use it again. The other day, I registered automatically for voter registration in Florida, had to show passport or birth certificate. Yes, actual authentic social security card. Yes, 2 things mailed to me from the cable company, utility company, to my name at my address. Had to show all of that to get a freaking driver license. And then I did register for the first time in my life as a Republican.
Yeah. The voice of Dennis Neal, if you're listening later on the podcast, we're on Streamcast, podcast, and broadcast, all of them, and the thousands of earballs hear this show because of the various and sundry platforms, the way we distribute throughout the day. Dennis, it is quite fascinating that anybody, them find themselves, I think, on the wrong side of these issues so often. They've gone through the defund the police. That ended up backfiring. I think the abolish ICE messaging will eventually backfire on them. And voting against voter ID, I think, again, the activists scream real loud, and they get all the oxygen out of the room up front. But, it takes a while. Working Americans going to work, nose to the grindstone every day, aren't paying attention to this as well. Give it 2 or 3, 4 weeks, 3 or 4 months. That people go, what? They voted against what? And then the average American in Peoria wakes up and goes, those people are bat crap crazy. I think we win on this one.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I mean, how can, here's the thing. Every now and then, the enemy bears their claws. They show who they really are. And that's what the Democrats just did, voting against voter ID. There's no other reason. They clearly want to cheat. Otherwise, they could Gretzky this, skate to where the puck's going to be, and fix it by simply funding a voter ID program to make sure everyone has one. But they do have one. And it's very condescending. The Democrats stand up for people of color and those who have been underrepresented in LGBTQ, et cetera. But there's a condescension there from this white liberal women's group, looking down on all the other lessers. And we're going to make sure you can vote because you may not have ID. You may not have access to computers. I mean, just absolutely awful. What is wrong with this? But at least they're showing themselves for who they really are.
People have a short memory and people don't geek out on this stuff, but I remember back right before 2020, Atlanta lost the All-Star baseball game, and it moved here to Colorado because Georgia had passed some voter reform acts, and in doing so, the Democrats called that Jim Crow 2.0.
Right. And yet we did have more votes, record high number of votes, more votes than ever before from Black people in Georgia, I'll bet you, and nationwide. Where's the suppression?
Yeah, it was all lies. It was all propaganda. Jim Crow 2.0 actually unleashed the population of the Black Americans in Atlanta and in Georgia to vote. So it was all lies, and I hope people remember that as they start doing this about this SAVE Act. Give me your thoughts here, my friend. Do you think, I just can't believe, first of all, I can't believe that with the partial government shutdown that John Thune and the Senate dismissed. I would have kept everybody in Washington, D.C. Keep doing your job. Don't go home and pretend you're representing your district because you're all a bunch of jackwagons. I would have kept them there.
What happened to the crisis of a government shutdown? We used to view this with such fear and such fear-mongering. And yet we had that 42-day shutdown, the longest on record recently. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent came out and said, hey, it's costing $15 billion a day to the economy. And yet it occurred, I think, in a quarter when we had 4% GDP growth, despite this supposed drag on everything. 2/3 or 75% of the government I've read operates automatically. Do you know that Social Security increases do not get voted on by Congress, that they are automatically happening, tracked to the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and they happen whether Congress votes or not. And they take the money right out of the general fund. It is incredible machinery, and it's just scary how automated it is. But that's why, the Senate could go on vacation, take a recess while there's a government shutdown. It no longer is a crisis at all.
Well, we'll see if they get rid of this, the filibuster. It's called the zombie filibuster, in which you can just kind of a cloture vote. I like their I know Mike Lee from Utah is talking about you've got to bring back the real life filibusters, in which I remember Jimmy Stewart, my one favorite movie watching was Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I want that kind of filibuster. If you're going to clog up the arteries of government, you need to work for it. I don't care if you're reading Dr. Seuss. I want you to talk until you collapse, and then we'll vote.
No, please don't give another platform to Corey Spartacus Booker. Everyone's so happy he's able to talk 24 hours in a row without taking a break for the restroom. That whole thing has got so much theater going on to it, But meanwhile, it feels like what's going to happen in the midterms, Jimmy? Do you think? I know that every president pretty much, I think, has pretty much lost ground in the midterms. I think we could lose both houses. To the Democrats that have gridlock. It's just that the Republican leadership doesn't help Trump anyway. Most of what he's gotten done in his first year, an extraordinary record of achievement, successes, and just damn decisive action. He did by executive order. He did by jawboning, by creating entire issues simply by bringing up stuff. I mean, he's the first to say, NATO, Europe, we're defending you. You're not paying anything. Come on. Today, they're spending hundreds of billions more than they ever have because Trump said something about it. Greenland, we've got it iced away from the China and Russia because Trump threatened, to try to annex it just by saying something about it. And did you see the latest? Trump, out of nowhere, makes it up and says, banks and credit card companies ought to cap their 23, 25%, 36% interest rates at 10% for the next, I think, year, did he say? And suddenly the other day, oh my God, AOC, Chuck Schumer, like other Democrats saying, yeah, they should have a 10% cap. It's the first time they ever had to support something Trump said. They finally couldn't bring themselves to say, no, we want credit card companies to stick with those 25% interest rates. Trump, just for the first time, trapped them into finally having to support one thing he said. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Amazing. Dennis Neal's my guest. He's the host of a podcast. You see it there on the screen. What's Bugging Me, the podcast. That's right there. And also you've got a book coming out that's forthcoming called Oregoners. And I'll let you talk about the podcast in Oregoners. Oregon is a great example of what's happening in a lot of other states
Oregon
as well.
Is going off a cliff. Let me talk about the book especially because I was writing a chapter this morning. I finished another chapter last night. I'm starting on a second part to it. Unbelievable what's happened to that state. It is a canary in the coal mine. We've seen big problems in blue cities like LA, San Francisco, New Jersey, Newark, Baltimore, places like that. But Oregon and Portland are canary in the coal mine for just how bad it gets, how crazy it gets when you have a Democrat supermajority, when you have union domination of the government worker union domination of the government, when you have a Republican Party so weak and out of control, but feeding at the same trough, so they're happy to go along and get along. And when you have a population that continues to reelect the most liberal Dems, no matter what the bad results, without even thinking about it, and a lapdog media that no longer is a watchdog and goes along with it, what you have are, look at the consequences. You have a state that has education among 4th and 8th graders near the bottom of the country. As one leader there in Portland told me, we're Mississippi now. And by the way, Mississippi is at the top. And that's in part because of union rules and union spending on higher and higher benefits and salaries. You have $1 billion a year in income leaving the Portland metro area because people are running away from high taxes. You have a new tax, the preschool for all tax. Let's send thousands of 3- and 4-year-olds to free preschool, by golly. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. We're here. Can you hear me?
I think I've lost you.
Nope, you're there. We got you. You're good. You lose me? No, I'm here.
I wonder if I should continue. I'll continue just in case.
Yeah, keep going. He can't hear me. We got you, Dennis. You're here.
Okay. You have the preschool for children tax, right? 1.5% on top of any income over $125,000 a year. 3% atop any income over $250,000. Okay, let's send thousands of children to school. Well, here's what's happened with that preschool tax. It's got a $600 million surplus more than it could spend for a $100 million a year program. It's enrolled only about 2,000 or 3,000 kids. They had targeted 8,000 or 12,000. Okay. And meanwhile, in that county where they passed this tax with 60% voter approval, in that county, they tracked the 1,000 richest taxpayers by name in those 3 years, the first 3 years of the tax. And Jimmy, 310 of those 1,000 richest taxpayers left the county. That's a 31% defection rate. That's unbelievable. What else do you have? Homelessness everywhere. Tents issued by NGOs that get $700 million a year in government money and then aren't held accountable for what they're doing. They're putting out so much food to addicts in Portland that it ends up feeding rats. It's more than they can actually eat. Besides, they're on methamphetamine, fentanyl, and heroin. They're not hungry. I mean, yet they get these grants. And if they solve the problem of homelessness in Portland and Eugene and Bend, these liberal enclaves in this rural Republican state, if they solve the problem of homelessness, they put themselves out of business. Yep. And so you have the second highest tax rates in the country in Portland after only New York City. The difference is that in New York, man, if someone messes up in Times Square, those cops are on them in a minute. In Portland, you have some of the lowest cop numbers, 800, 1 per 1,000. It should be 2.2 per 1,000. It's at 1993 levels in the city. And now there's a proposal saying we ought to hire 400 more cops, bring the 800 to 1,200, bring it up to the national average. That's all we're looking to do. We'll take $50 million a year to do that. From where? This climate change fund that itself has like a $300 million surplus. The government is taxing so much, it's bringing in more than even government can spend. And most times it doesn't have programs itself. It hands it out to NGOs. And then a certain portion of that money round trips right back into the coffers of the Democrats who gave it to them, because Oregon is one of only 9 states with no limits on campaign contributions. Governor Tina Kotek, who won the election in 2022 with fewer votes than Donald Trump got in 2024, is supported by the unions. They gave her, I think it was $6 million, $5 or $6 million in campaign contributions to her. Government worker unions understand. They gave her those contributions, and no other class of contributors, business, etc., came close. It was the largest single group, and that buys influence. I've had sources in Oregon tell me that when you are a Democrat elected to the legislature for the first time and you go in on your first day in office, the union shows up in your office and says, here's your chief of staff, and it's one of their own. I was told weeks ago, Tina Kotek's office, which is filled with former union officials as advisors, she received the next 2-year biennial budget for Oregon State from the SEIU.
Wow.
Another government worker union. They have incredible control, and all they want to do is pad their own revenue and membership expansion so they get more money to contribute to the very same politicians who are funding their ever richer pensions. They have a pension crisis as well in this state. I mean, here's the weird thing. A guy said this to me. Government is the only entity that isn't judged on outcomes. If people just keep getting reelected, they don't care that they're ruining the state because they keep getting reelected, and that's all that matters. So the people are blinded and brainwashed. But now, Jimmy, for the first time, there's signs they're rising up and saying, enough of this craziness.
Yep. Because
more people are standing up and fighting back. Tina Kotek calls a special legislation to the legislature because you failed to pass this new tax hike on gas and other transportation costs. She calls them back an emergency. Otherwise, they're not going to clear the highways of the snow this winter. And they pass it. It's 6 cents a gallon gasoline, I believe. They needed 78,000 signatures to put that law on the books and try to on a ballot and challenge it. They got 250,000. And that's not just conservatives in the state. That's liberals. That's moderates. That's people who are fed up.
Yeah, I saw the story, and I know Oregon's the canary in the coal mine, but even the Gavin Newsom policies. You saw Mark Zuckerberg decided to buy a house right probably in your neighborhood down in Florida. He's probably your next door neighbor. He says, "I'm getting out of this place." He's been in California since he was a teenager, and he's out of here.
There goes another $250 billion in wealth. I think he's worth $250 billion, maybe worth more. I mean, just incredible. Chamath Palihapitiya. I love that I can say that. He's on the All In podcast. Super brilliant guy, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, almost $1 billion, I think. Came out and said there's $2 trillion in California held by 100 billionaires. That's like 10, isn't it 10 billion a piece or 20 billion a piece? And he said already $1 trillion, half of it has left California because of the fear of this new ballot proposal that says, hey, just one time we promise billionaires we're going to tax, your income and take a big portion of it. And I forget what the range is. It might be 10 to 16%, although I may be plugging that from something else. But just the possibility of, we're going to make it retroactive to Jan 1, 2026 has led $1 trillion to flee it. And, it happens even at a smaller level. In New York City, where I just left, Kami Mamdani is passing. He wants to push a new millionaire tax, of the Mamdani millionaire tax. The state would have to back it and support it and approve it. He wants to, and he says, hey, if you earn over $1 million, it's just $20,000. What's that, right? I mean, so what? And yet for a person who earns 10 million, it's 200,000. For one who earns 100 million, it's 550,000 per year, every single year. In addition, it is a 52% raise in the personal income tax on people earning over 1 million. That's going to make them leave, and it's going to make the next tier of people who want to get to 1 million leave, because by moving to Florida, where there is a constitutional prohibition, I believe, against an income tax. By moving to Florida, I've received a 14% after-tax raise on any income I can bring in, because there's no state tax and there's no city tax. And I got to say, hallelujah.
Yeah. Before we go, I was watching. I'm a big fan of American Idol. It used to be the music industry.
Really?
I love American Idol. I sit and watch it in my cigar room in my house, and I cry all the emotional stories.
I love seeing people kind of finally get recognition for all their hard work and all their dreams, because they're earning them instead of thinking they deserve them.
I noticed last night, I think our third episode aired last night, so I tape it so I can fast forward to the commercials, and I'm watching it, and I realize everybody's going to Hollywood Week, but Hollywood Week, it's fourth week. Hollywood Week is not in Hollywood this year. It's in Nashville, and I started, why would they call it Hollywood Week, but they're doing it in Nashville? And then I realized, I did the math based on Carrie Underwood and Luke Bryan. They live in Tennessee. To the judges, if they were to work that entire time in California, how many millions of dollars they would be losing. And I'm sure their agent said, let's just do this here. And Lionel Richie already lives there. He lives in California, Beverly Hills. But these other two judges, like Hollywood Week on American Idol, is now in Nashville, and they still call it Hollywood Week.
That is stunning. That is such a great observation, Jimmy. I should really stop talking so much and let you say more. I apologize for filibustering. That is stunning to me. But did you see the story about the quarterback for the Seahawks? Well, and my God, how is it Darnold? Yes, Darnold.
Yeah, Sam Darnold.
He earned, I think, $175,000 for the Super Bowl. He was going to have to pay in California. I read, I think it was $248,000 in state income tax because he played there. And that is enough to move the Super Bowl out of California entirely. And the NFL Players Union ought to argue for that, or ought to tell the owners, if you want to be in California, you gross us up and you pay our tax bill.
Yep. No, it wasn't Sam Darnold got all the attention, but any player that had that in their contract gets a Super Bowl bonus, and everybody automatically gets that 170 if they win the Super Bowl. They all had to pay the tax. Every freaking player on that team, the kicker, the punter, the stars, the non-stars.
Right. And then here's the thing, though. If you thought the money's going to great services, to a really efficient government, that's great. Do you know that I got my driver license here the other day? I had just got the new one, fancy one in New York. They gave me an appointment to show up. Don't you dare show up any earlier than 15 minutes ahead of time. I sat there for 3.5 freaking hours waiting for them to give me that driver license. In Florida, in South Florida, I was in and out in 15 minutes. Okay, I'm willing to pay a certain amount of tax for that kind of good service. But in California, all those huge taxes are wasted. They're going to a government that has failed. They're going to cities like LA and San Francisco that are in dire straits. They're going to utter waste. Yeah. And there's the problem when you have high taxes.
Dennis Neal, What's Bugging Me podcast. I know you've been a little hiatus on the podcast recently in your big transition and move, and you're also working on the book Oregoners. So drive the folks to the website, or how do they stay in contact with you on social media? And when's the book out?
Jimmy, I'm being silenced on X. Me and Greg Gutfeld of Fox for weeks now. I'm not allowed to retweet or post. They say you can never even start a new account. You're blocked forever. We had a careful review. It's all automated.
Oh, he froze.
I got to get Elon Musk's attention. Shoot, I've been praising you for freedom of speech, Elon, and you guys are muzzling me. This is awful. So, but if you'll check out my podcast, because there's stuff there that's just fantastic. It'll change your life. And
Change
Jimmy,
your life.
I love your podcast and what you do, and I love what you're doing there, and down there in Rwanda. And I just enjoy talking to you and appreciate so much you being willing to come on and let me talk your ear off.
Hey, I appreciate you hopping on here, and let's do it again here real soon. And be careful for the iguanas. I don't want one to fall on your head or anything.
Yeah, a friend of mine tried to feed him and got bitten, which is kind of dumb of her. I'm not going to make that mistake.
I didn't realize you're not indigenous. They're considered an invasive species, and so in Florida, they're like, please kill them. We don't want them. Yeah. And there are people doing that as a business, and I wonder, where's PETA? They'd freak out if they knew about this down here. I can see somebody, you got an iguana on the spit out back, you're rolling the thing around, and roasted iguana.
Like chicken.
Yeah, it tastes like chicken. Dennis Neal, we'll talk again soon. Thank you, my friend. Go to check out his podcast, What's Bugging Me. His website, Dennis Neal, you saw it on the screen, dennisneal.com. Real quick before we go, Dennis mentioned our work in Rwanda. Yesterday was a day off. We didn't do the show with President's Day. We're celebrating our great presidents. And I got a message from, and I didn't get a chance to pull up the photos, and I'll do that tomorrow, so tune in. Do you guys remember a kid named Steven? He's been kind of a celebrity of one of the kids we sponsored. He was near death with hepatitis until he got in our sponsorship program. And with medical care and a sponsor, we got him taken care of, and he's a smiley kid. We show him a lot. Steven's kind of a little celebrity. And if you've been following the show along, you met a kid named John Dedu. He actually witnessed his mother murder his father, and it was a tragedy, and we've got him some psychological help, and he's orphaned because mom's in jail, dad's dead. And then Stephen had a little brother named Eric. All of these kids are pretty orphans, and there was one little lady named Sarah that took care of all of them, and I have video of her, and I think I played it either on this show or it's on one of the feeds. I've played it before, and I'll try to pull that out. And Sarah was taking care of all of these little boys, these orphans, and she lived in a shack. And a couple of years ago, about a year or so ago, for Christmas, we put a roof back on Sarah's house. She had holes, and so when it rained, they all had to sit in the side of a hut. So we've really taken care of them. Anyway, I got word yesterday morning, tragically, that Sarah, this little old lady, passed away. And they found out because John Dedu and Stephen did not come to school, and Eric, and they went out and found out what's happening. And the area that they lived in, Sarah had passed away. Why do I tell you that story? Because I thought my week this week was going to be helping my guys. We're raising money for food, but we don't just take care of food. We're in social services. We have to find a place for these kids to live. We'll find another widow that will take them in. They're orphans. There's no social safety net in Rwanda. And so anyway, a shout out to our guys, my guys, Jonas and Ildefons, that are my ground team there. Ildefons is new. And they're working overtime, trying to make sure that Stephen and John Dedu, I'll show you their photos tomorrow, and Eric have a new place to live. And again, trauma after trauma for these kids. The point I try to make is, yes, you can buy fruits and vegetables and eggs, and $9 for a classroom of eggs, and any donation you give, man, we so appreciate it. Somebody got paid on the 15th. Think of Rivers Promise. I ask that you do. But I'm telling you, it's not just feeding the kids and giving them education. We are, in many cases, the social safety net for these kids. And so when you contribute to our greatest need, to my knowledge, is not going. We'll find a place to get these kids shelter and housing, and we'll find a situation for them. But I just tell that story to say that it's more than just building a school and calling it a Christian school. And it's more than just feeding kids and getting their bellies full. But as you know, in life, sometimes when you're out of the Christian school and when you're in just on Main Street and you're at home and you're not at the church, life can happen. And our job is to help these kids. So when you donate to Rivers Promise, you're enabling us to have a team over there that not just gets the food for them, but you're enabling us to have a team that when a boy who is 9 years old, 10 years old, and is already dealing with trauma from having his mother murder his father in front of him, now his caretaker has passed away, and we have a team that can come in and help that out. Told you right before Christmas, about October, I think, last year, a little girl, Lillian, that was where she was raped, and we've helped her. She's back in school now. She's doing very well. I just got a letter last week. She wants me to send to her sponsor. And so I say all that if you're thinking about Rivers Promise, I could just talk about food and eggs and the price of eggs, and that's wonderful. I could talk about sponsoring a child for $65 a month, and you take care of their education. But I also would just remind you that when you give a one-time gift, you're enabling us to not only do all these programs that we do, but to pivot and make sure, because again, if Stephen had not been taken care of us, he'd be dead. And if we don't help Stephen and Eric and John Dedu go find a new place, they will end up being homeless street kids and given to a life of theft and petty theft. That's all they will have to survive. So if you think about it today, first of all, pray for those little boys that are once again experiencing loss and trauma in their life. But if you also think of it, would you make a donation today to Rivers Promise, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. I'll be honest with you, on the February the 20th, 2021 is when I do another transfer of funds over to our accounts there, and that takes care of some things we have to take care of. And so if you give today, by the time your card's clear and all that stuff, that money will be on the ground this week with a wire transfer, and it will be working, buying food. It'll be working to make sure kids like Stephen, who does have a sponsor, John Dedu has a sponsor, but other kids that have the same trauma in their life don't have sponsors, but they come to our school. And so if you find it in your heart of hearts, whether it's $1 or $1,000, whatever you can do, I just tell you stories of what we're doing on the ground is not just, all the happy kids showed up to education today. That's great. That's our top priority is education. It's a pit. It's a ladder that a kid can use to climb from the pit of poverty. That's wonderful. And yeah, we feed them. It's easier for them to learn as they're not having empty tummies and not starving. But also there's things that happen in life that they have no parents. So we're it for them. And this is one of those situations. So I'll show you some photos, maybe the video. I'll find the old video of Sarah introducing us to John Dedu, and as before, and the next time I saw him, he's happy because we got him therapy. But if you make a donation today, riverspromise.org, 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 and we'd appreciate it. Thank you. So what this is, if you're new to the show, you don't know what this is. If you're not new to the show, you know it's time for the stolen memes section of the show. And let's do it. Let's steal some memes around the globe. Here we go. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Reminder, the people who are against voter ID, they wanted you to show vaccine papers. That's true. Yeah, you couldn't go to restaurants in New York City without your vaccine papers to show them. Didn't have any. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. We celebrated last night with a couple of adult beverages, Metamucil and Ensure. I'm not that old. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. ICE leaves Minneapolis to focus on other American cities. To focus on American cities. I see. Yeah, Minneapolis is a Somalia city. Yeah, I like that. I just read it wrong. The delivery, I screwed it up. I apologize. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Any family history of mental illness? Well, I have a cousin who thinks voter ID is racist. That would count mental illness. Yeah, mental illness. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. It's harder for blacks to get an ID. No, it's not. Well, that's what Democrats said. Oh, you mean the people that started the KKK? It does sound kind of racist. Yep, there it is. Party of the KKK, the Democrats, and Chuck Schumer. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. We learned two very important lessons in my life. I can't recall the first one, but the second one is that I need to start writing things down. That would help as well. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Prison is a perfect place for liberals, if you think about it. They ought to go there. Everyone's equal there. Free food and housing. There's no guns. There's universal health care. And yep, there's same-sex relationships. Some of you should go check yourself in. Some of you deserve to be there. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. There's the gong, my friend, all the way from the Great Wall of China. They stop us when we get too proficient at intellectual property theft. The Chinese say, no, you cannot be better than us at intellectual property theft. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've gone overtime on today's show, making up for lost time yesterday. And Dennis Neal and I just enjoy chit-chatting together, and we always do. Big-time guest Charles Goyette. If you missed it, you go back and listen to him. New York Times bestselling author Laura Carno talked a lot about Gavin Newsom today and the stupidity of California. And, of course, Dennis Neal, you just heard that conversation about falling iguanas and craziness with the people voting against the Voter ID Save Act. So all of that is in the show. Go back and listen if you missed part of it. Podcast, Spotify, iHeart, Podbean, Apple Podcasts. You can hear the show or the audio version or share it out there. We appreciate you all doing that. And one more time, thank you, Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. And if you could, I just told the story. I'll tell you more about this breaking news that we had yesterday regarding this passing of this dear woman who was taking care of so many little orphans. And we're working on that now. But if you can make a donation today to Rivers Promise, we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And what you give today literally shall be on the streets working by the end of this week. It'll be in full force. So we appreciate you doing it. And we are short this month, I can tell you that. And I thought my stress was going to be raising money to get our food bill and stuff paid over there. I got worried about Eric and Stephen and John Dedu. Yeah. All right. God bless you, my friends. I'll see you tomorrow. Website, riverspromise.org. You make a donation if you could. I appreciate it. Until we meet again tomorrow, may God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Jaime Lagos is what they call me south of the border. But either way, God bless. See you tomorrow. I'm out of here.